Welcome back to another Medtech Snapshot. I'm excited to talk software today with my buddy, Peman Montazemi. Peman's the CTO of Bright Uro. They are a new startup to some degree here in Orange County, but they've got some exciting stuff going on. And Peman, what we're going to be talking about today is if you look at the development of software in the medical device space, what would you say is the biggest hurdle developers have to overcome, and how have you dealt with that in the past?
Hi, Travis, and thank you so much for having me. It's a loaded question, so if you don't mind, I'll break it down into maybe a few pieces. So for any kind of medical device that is not just a mechanical system, like, any kind of catheter and whatnot, the minute you have some electronics, you have some software, and software literally goes anywhere. It's like the nervous system of an entire system of systems. You can have it, as you know, in embedded, medical devices. You can have it on tablets. You can have it, on the cloud. You can have, web applications for, any kind of portal for doctors and clinicians. So it's everywhere. And I think the biggest challenge is, after you have the right resources, whether they're internal, they're external and whatnot, for every single one of these technological stacks, is to understand the regulatory landscape for the region that you're in. And of course, now we have to add, when the minute you say software, there's a second component, which is cybersecurity. And as of 29th December of 2022, it has become a law in the United States to actually have to adhere to very, very critical guidances imposed by the FDA, at least for the United States. And so therefore, you can imagine that the sandwich and the layer of the stacks are becoming bigger and bigger. So if I'm a software engineer, whether I'm embedded or application, I have to code, I have to go and follow the standards and guidances and whatnot, which are constantly evolving. So one of the hurdles is to make sure, how do we make sure that we have the proper software development lifecycle that is adhering to these guidances and international standards, regardless of the stack that I'm in, and then that I have cross-pollination of the training that is required as a team now to kind of move everything in one direction and still adhere to these guidances, international standards, still, abide by our internal processes and quality management system. And finally, making sure that while we're driving this, design in the right direction, it is also meeting basically the user needs and the clinical needs, etc., which is a very, very, subtle balance.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here real quick, Peman. So you talked about cybersecurity. How do you feel like the resources, if you looked at agency support, regulatory, how do you feel like they are set up to be successful in that in terms of helping OEMs? Do you feel like they're there, or is it still a pretty big variance in order for them to get to that point?
Yeah, and I think, based on the size of the system, it's a very small system. It could be contained, and you could have some internal training that put in place, in the company or whatnot. But in a lot of cases, you may have to, either outsource or a mix of the two. The effort and the requirements, specifically in the September 2023 guidance that came out for the FDA for the United States territory, was colossal. The gap or the delta with respect to the previous expectation was really, colossal. And there's multiple views and software bill of materials that need to be generated, and very, very detailed things to make sure that there's no cyber attack possible. And so there's a CFMEA, or cybersecurity failure mode and effects analysis, that needs to be very detailed on every single node of the entire system of systems. So it can become a very big, undertaking. And so therefore, so you may want to strategize to actually do a split of internal resources that are implementing and understanding and getting trained, at the same time having a consulting company or R&D partners that are coming in, because they are dedicated 24/7 at reading these things and understanding the flow diagrams and understanding these things, whereas you want to stay focused, or at least for me, I would like to stay focused and with my team on the product itself and the clinical user interface and whatnot, so that we receive those inputs, from experts, and then we can, again, update our requirements based on that specific, CFMEA.